Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of The Brother's Son. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, kind of an interesting opening where we get introduced to everything on the Taipei side of things, where we get introduced to Charles as he brutally murders 3 people while he was in the process of baking a cake. He's even got the Great British Bake Off. I even love that scene where it's like the TV turns and it's what's in focus. It's me being me. I can't multitask, so I kept looking too much at the TV rather than the action sequence that's out of focus in the background. It's just like my brain just like got so distracted. Like I was like, I should be focusing on the action scene, but I keep, I'm not even a British Bake Off fan. Nothing against the show, just never seen it. But it's just like that's all my focus was on sometimes. But yeah. Once again, I love action sequences that involves like environmental stuff of using, stuff. I mean, he even talks about later on. It's like, oh yeah, I killed 3 people with a rolling pin, and it's like, yeah, it wouldn't work. I also love the 2 cleanup crew people that show up who are complaining. The guy's like, oh, when's the last time you killed someone? She's like, it's fairly recently. He's like, dude, I'm known as like Blood Shoes or whatever, and I forgot what his nickname is, but I love that. It's like, oh, it kind of reminds me of Zeph from what was it, Zeph from One Piece, who's like, the blood on his boots and everything. So it's like, I love that whole situation. But it's like, yeah, home dude is stuck to more so cleaning up bodies rather than cleaning up situations, like killing people. So, but we kind of, immediately, and I think this is going to be that kind of that they complete each other and they kind of compensate for each other in a lot of ways. Relationship that we get, like, just on personality wise, when we're introduced to Charles, that his dad kind of calls him out. And what surprised me when his dad showed up, I was like, oh, I thought this all revolved around your mom. It seems like his mom, played by Michelle Yeoh, of course, is the key to all of this, which I thought was so interesting. But it's like, but yeah, when his dad popped up, I was like, oh, your dad must die then. But I'm like, then it, like I said, it all focuses on your mom. So what's her part to play? It's like, well, your entire family is under attack. So I was like, well, his dad's not dead. He's just in a coma from the blood loss. But I'm like, that to me is a little suspicious because I'm like, well, I mean, not saying that's a lie, but I'm also like, yeah, but did you see him? You haven't talked to anyone directly. You're hearing all this secondhand from someone else. So I'm like, because immediately you're like, okay, there's got to be maybe a traitor amongst the team. And I'm like, the guy he's talking to who seems like he's kind of second in command, I'm like, he seems like the obvious choice. That seems pretty obvious. It's going to end up being him. He's going to be a traitor or something. I don't know. Maybe the guy was like an uncle to Charles or whatever. But I'm like, my suspicions are with that guy. First episode, haven't seen anything else. Just gut feeling of it's usually the second guy in command, the person you trust the most ends up being that person. Because whoever it was knew that Charles's dad would come out of hiding just to make sure Charles is okay. But even his dad was like, yeah, this is suspicious. There's only 3 people here. They know who you are. And why corner you in an apartment where they could have easily gotten you in a place where it's easily retreatable in case things go wrong, or kind of catch you off guard, like in a hallway where you're very restricted. Like, why put themselves in a box situation like this? Because the whole point was they were bait to draw out his father. Especially because his dad was talking about how he's like, right, you're too quick to kill. You enjoy killing too much. You're too you're too quick. You don't think things through. And he also kind of comes at it from the perspective of, okay, you think it's Sleepy Chan, but it's like, go from the most impossible thing and work your way towards the most likely, because then you can find most likely the solution is somewhere in between, which I thought was so interesting because he's kind of got the perspective of, Arkham's Razor, like the simplest answer typically is. So it's like, obviously it's, Sleepy Chan is like, no, but it seems a little too obvious. And it is a thing of, without evidence, you would be going to war with another triad and for nothing, especially if they have nothing to do with your dad. But I'm sure that's the point of it, maybe to instigate some stuff, or who knows if they're even trying to start a war and frame Sleepy Chan for it. It might just be like, we're not even trying that, we're just coming for you and we're going to wipe you off the board. Might just be as simple as that. But his job, rather than like trying to get revenge, his job is to protect his mom. But they had this interesting line of dialogue where they were saying like, she's the key to everything, but basically to protect the family she had to disappear. So part of me is wondering, is she like some kind of triad royalty? like, because it's like your mom is like the heart of our power. So I'm like, I wonder, is it her lineage? Like, she comes from a powerful family, and in conjunction with their father, was able to kind of create this powerful triad dynasty type of situation. I'm curious if that's what it is, because like, we don't have an answer to what that is about and why she had to go in hiding. Like, was she kind of, she's too important? But it's like, why did she have to move away? And then like, that's because I was curious about Charles and Bruce's relationship. They haven't been around each other since they were kids. So Bruce was born by because Charles like even talks about it later on, having a memory of them sharing a room together. So they were together when they were kids, but it was so long ago Bruce doesn't even remember. And we find out his mom's kind of told these lies about who his father is and who his brother is. It's like, oh, your father's a gambler and your brother is in the Arctic handling stuff with penguins, which is interesting considering the fact is he's gone most of his life. At best, he's like late teens, early 20s, and having not seen his brother in probably nearly 2 decades, if not at that point, and it never really questioned. That's even why Charles later on is like, is he a fucking idiot? It's like, why would you like take that for fact? It's like, well, their mom made the point of, well, I made us seem so boring that no one would notice us, and I kept up the lie by being like, you guys led such an exciting life, and maybe she was like, that leads to you not being around as much. But it's like, you know, you'd have questions, wouldn't you? Like that once again, it goes back to Charles' point. Is he an idiot? Like, he was so willing to accept it, but who's going to believe their mom's lying to them? But you'd at least think like, she's keeping something from me. I haven't been able to talk to my brother, and every time I probably ask about my brother and my dad, my mom makes up excuses. I wonder, has he actually talked to his dad? Does his dad like handle stuff and it's like, no, I'm gonna do this and that, and like talk to him over the phone, but just never get fully attached? I don't know. It leads to a lot of questions on that front. But on the state sides of things, in Los Angeles, we meet Bruce and find out about, hey, he's a Lyft driver. He's also a college student trying to make it by, but he's also spending his tuition money on being because I love that it's like, oh, are you not still doing that thing? And he's like, no, mom, I told you I wasn't going to do it, and I'm not doing it anymore. I was like, what is it? At first I was like, is he doing like a side hustle of selling drugs or something? But it's like, no, that's TK's, like, not even a side hustle, that's his whole hustle. That was like, so what is it? It's like, oh, being an improv. It's like he spent $5,000 on an improv class. I was like, interesting. But when I think of improv, it's not the same thing. But to me, like, I was like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, the best improv class in the city. I'm like, oh, like, does it have its own Gene Cousineau? I know that's acting versus like improv, but still, like, it made me think of that. So it's like, wow. I also love later on when Charles and their mom is talking about it. She's like, yeah, he's doing that thing, you know, that acting thing where like you make stuff up on the spot. He's like, and Charles is like, improv? She's like, oh yeah, I nipped that in the bud immediately. I think it's not only you want to be an actor, you want to be an improv actor. Disgusting. I'm sure, like, you know, just from a cultural standpoint, it's just, for one, you're coming from an Asian family, that's going to be a no-go already. It's like, no, go down like the medicine route, or like be in a career that's good. You know, that's your stereotypical situation. But I wonder did they look at it down on it even more, because it's not like you just want to be an actor, you want to be an improv actor. I mean, improv skills are good considering what the antithesis of this show is. He's going to need those lessons. Granted, we don't know how many classes he's actually going to and how successful or how good he is at improv. We see later on he's not good at being quick or under pressure. So, plus he's also stressing about getting the $5,000 he took from his intuition to actually take improv. So he's trying to get the money from TK. But TK's like, oh, like, you work with me, and TK's been trying to push him down this route. I thought it was interesting, too, TK being like, oh, yeah, I'm also the one that taught you English, which I was like, oh, I'm sure that would probably bring you closer together when it's like, I mean, once again, it also depends on what kind of school did he go to. Did he go to a school that was, like, mainly white, pretty diverse? Was, like, you some of the only Asian kids at the school? You know, maybe he was the only person that ever bothered trying to reach out to him and teach him English. He's like, yeah, I taught you, like, when they were, like, in 5th grade or something like that, which I thought was interesting. So that's kind of like that. TK seems like, because of that fact and other elements, he does seem like the very ride or die type of bro. So I thought that was just kind of a neat little, you know, interjection of kind of their relationship. They also make it seem like, really quickly with Bruce too, just thought was kind of an interesting thing. He took a test and he got finished like 20 minutes early, but even the teacher's like, yeah, the last time you handed that in early, you were missing, you didn't double check things and it cost you points. He's like, yeah, but a B's still good enough. And I'm like, oh, so are you not trying, or are you so focused on, yeah, I got to get this money, I got to hurry up so I can like squeeze some time in to try and like pay off my tuition, because if I don't, this whole semester is going to be invalidated and your mom's going to find out about that. So doubly, it's going to be like, right, you're behind on tuition and she's going to find out that you've been spending it on improv. So it's going to be a double whammy of disappointment. So then we have Charles showing up in Los Angeles and going to their house, because I was almost like, oh, it's like, oh, like, is your mom gonna be shocked to see? But it's like, no, she's working late, and Bruce is out selling drugs with TK, so he's not home. So you come into the house, you kind of break into the house, and you get attacked, which leads to this whole crazy action sequence, which I love, that ends with you stabbing dude's hand in the table, stabbing the other one into the floor. But at least you had the kindness, the guy's kind of looking at you, kind of like, hey, are you gonna, it's like, all right, fine, and hooks him up with a cigarette. I'm also like, how are you gonna smoke that considering both your hands are in the are currently impaled? But I'm like, I guess you made it work. It's like you're smoking one side of your mouth and you blow it out the other, I guess. I don't know, maybe the mask acts as a means of like holding it up. But yeah, home dude was about ready to kind of like pull his hands off but I love that like Charles just casually gets up and then just kicks him and breaks his neck against the table, and I'm like, wow, and he did it so matter of fact, like, oh, I see you trying to remove your hand from the knife. All right, you want to be difficult. All right. The whole point, because I think he was trying to abide by what his dad said previously, at least keep one of them alive so he could pump them for information. The guy goes on this whole spiel about oh God, what was the exact wording? It's like you kind of have to like it's some kind of thing about kind of purifying, which is so interesting that a gang has that perspective on, like, I forgot what it was. I'm missing the exact wording. I'm sure they'll repeat it in the future because it seems to be their slogan. But it was almost like, oh, let's cleanse the sin, blah blah blah. Like, it was some weird thing that you're like, why does a gang have that? Do they consider themselves holy warriors or justice or whatever, cleansing everything? Like, that's why I'm like, what's your shtick, this group? And why specifically are they? Well, I mean, I was about to say, well, you're the top of the triad, so I'm like, maybe that's enough reason to come after you. But maybe there's something deeper. Maybe it's something deeper, specifically tied to their mom, because maybe that's why they're coming after her specifically. I mean, to be fair, they started with the dad, but maybe they knew that if they got rid of the dad, that would force Charles to go look for his mom and brother. So it was just kind of a well-played plan of like, all right, we know you'd react like this, so we'd be able to follow you. Because the moment he landed in the plane, one of the stewardess like typed up and was like texting someone like, yeah, he landed, this is what he's wearing, yada yada, so and so forth. So it was all kind of him falling right into people's way. And because the whole point of going alone was, it's like, oh, I'll draw less attention, but it's like, once again, from the very beginning, you've been basically going down the path someone else carved for you, just so you'd lead them straight to your mom and brother. Bruce is starting to have second guessing whether or not, am I really the right person to be selling drugs? I'm a little too honest. I even love that whole bit about, oh yeah, like, my mom buys the cheapest internet, and I know my next door neighbor has like that mega 5G or whatever. I've known his password for the past 2 years. It's actually his address, which I'm like, that's not, I get it. It might be an older person. It's like, you might want to pick something a little different from that. But yeah, he's like, I don't want to use it, which I'm like, even I'm like, you're stupid. I've been in that situation where I've bootlegged off someone else's Wi-Fi. I'm like, you're an idiot for doing that. Like, you're a more honest person than I am, because I would definitely take advantage of that. Given the situation, I would like, yeah, but he's like, yeah, I'm too honest of a person. I know the guy's Wi-Fi. He probably wouldn't even know I'm tapping into it, but it's just, I would know, and he'd feel guilty about it. So But TK takes him to meet the boss, which, surprisingly enough, he gets introduced to May. And May's got a bubbly personality, and I guess it's supposed to be a little bit of that. I guess Oxymoron might be kind of the... She's kind of the personification of an oxymoron, where it's like, oh, she's this drug dealer, and then you find out she's kind of got like this bubbly personality. But to be fair, it's like, since I made a reference to Barry before, because I got Barry on the mind recently, she's kind of a little NoHo Hankish, where it's like, oh, you're part of this criminal group, but you're also a little fun, but you can also be scary when you want to be. So I think that's kind of interesting, where she is like, oh my god, you're so honest, what are your hobbies? He's like, yeah, like improv. She's like, oh, I like making stuff and selling it on Etsy, but my main thing is selling drugs. I like it, and if I'm going to hand you my drugs, this is my baby, and I'm going to ask you to treat my baby nicely, and if anything happens to my baby, we're going to have a problem. You understand that? And he's like, right, I do. And she's like, right. He's too honest of a person, which she was like, it's not a compliment, but honest people are loyal. They'll do what they're told, and they'll be too chicken shit to actually try and screw me over, so get to work. And he's terrible at it. It's like, oh, do you want to buy drugs? It's just like, oh god, could you scream and sound more like a cop? It's like, TK should have known that was not going to be the perfect fit, but it's like, it is what it is. But yeah, gets reunited with his long lost brother, which once again, he doesn't even remember his brother. It didn't even, because I figured as much when their mom met him, and it's like, oh, she hasn't seen him. I think, didn't she call him Little Fatty? Wasn't that his? I guess maybe when he was younger, he was chubby. So I think that's what she said, right? That was like his little nickname. And because she's like, oh, your beard is terrible. Because she legitimately has not seen him since he was a kid. Because I'm sure, like, I brought up earlier, like, oh, maybe he talks to his dad or something to some small degree. But it's like, no, you probably, just for safety purposes, probably cut off all forms of communication. So I also love that his mom kind of gave him a similar advice to his dad, where it's like, he's like, oh, it's got to be Sleepy Chin. She's like, yeah, but him and your dad been going at it for like 20 years. But also, don't make assumptions. It's kind of like her perspective on it too. Like, it's just kind of like, don't just assume you got it all figured out. Like, things are probably a little more complex than you think. So it's like, right, you're getting that same speech not only from your dad, you're also getting it from your mom. And if they're both giving you literally the same piece of advice, I think that's where you kind of have to start going, okay, I might need to start listening. Because he's trying to make this whole point of, you've been out of the game for so long, you washed your hands clean of this whole thing when you went into hiding. So that puts me in charge. But it's like, yeah, you're young and arrogant, you think you're hot shit, you think you know everything, and people, whoever they're up against is playing into that, thinking you feel like, oh, like, I know how this is run, I know what to do, especially because he's looking down on his brother, because it's like, oh, he's grown up soft, he's weak, he doesn't know what we've had to do to survive, which I could see that being a thing of eventually Charles, if not already, Charles being a little resentful, because if you look at the family photos, what are they family photos of? Their mom and him and Bruce. It's got to sting a little, because it's like, so no family photos of me, because it's like, then it leads to a whole bunch of questions. Once again, they had to cut off all communications, but it's still kind of sad, where it's like, I'm the oldest, and then also, I'm the one that kind of got stuck doing all the dirty work, where he got to live like a comfy life. I'm the one that had to fight hard to kill, to prove myself. So, I mean, he even has the, nickname Chairleg Charles, because May turns out to be a big fan of his. And she's like, oh my god, I'm like a mega fan. Is it true that you like beat like 10 assassins to death with like a chair leg? He was like, well, I recently beat three to death with a rolling pin. And she's like, oh my god, see what I mean? He's so awesome. I love that all that kind of goes down while like Charles has like his brother's finding out the truth. Wait, dad's part of a triad, one of the most powerful triads. Wait, you've killed people. What? It's a rude awakening, and even Charles has to sit there and take quite a few lickings, like a whole bunch of punches and hits, just so they don't blow his brother's testicles off. But I love that one of the guys stopped and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm taking a breather. She's like, you're taking a breather mid-beating. You're supposed to be beating a guy. He's like, yeah, but usually it doesn't go this long. It's like, that's so funny to think about one of your henchmen laying down a smackdown, but he gets tired partway through because he doesn't have the stamina to keep it up. Just once again speaks volumes about Charles not getting knocked down and, still ready for more punishment type of situation. So... But obviously solos everyone in the room except for May because they go toe to toe. She's really good with those scissors. But sadly ends up dead. I legitimately felt bad when May died because I was like, oh, that sucks. I was hoping maybe she'd be a recurring character, but if she was still out and about, she probably would have been an issue because she would have been like, oh, you screwed. Well, she probably never would have been fine either way because the people that came to kill him, to kill Charles and the family, probably would have come to clean house with May anyway. She's her own person, so I don't see anyone coming to get revenge for her. Not unless some of her cronies are still alive and they want to get justice in that regard, but she was kind of, at least from what she kind of talked about it, like she was the head honcho, so it also kind of screws up TK's job, so that's kind of down the toilet when your boss dies, so. And doesn't just die, he gets brutally murdered. Like I said, I felt, and she was trying to take them all out. She took out one with the pair of scissors, but the other one, she only hit him in the helmet, and they, like, shot her twice. I was like, man, I legitimately felt bad for her. I kind of wanted her to see her pop up more later on. Luckily, Bruce was able to get his brother out of there. TK was their ride home, and there they find their mom in the proceedings of, dismembering a body. So it's like, yeah, honey, go upstairs and go to sleep. You've got a test tomorrow. Charles, help me get rid of this body. So it's like, yeah, and just how matter of fact she is. Once again, maybe that's also been her role in the family. Whereas like maybe the dad was the muscles, maybe she was the brains of the operation. Maybe that's why he was like, she's the centerfold of our power because maybe she has the mind for the criminal stuff. So maybe that's what it is. Who knows? Like, once again, like, we'll have to wait to see to get a better understanding of what her role in everything is and why she had to go into hiding. But enjoying the show so far, and I'm very excited to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.